Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our session. We're just going to let people filter in for a minute or so, and then we will be starting momentarily. It's very exciting. We have a large attendee base today. Happy to see so many people involved. See if we can. We're heading towards 100. We're heading towards 100 attendees. So I think we're good. So welcome, everyone. And thank you for sharing your lunch hour with us. I'm Rita Riker, President of Focus Greater Syracuse, and so pleased to have you join our co-hosted co-hosted forum with Leadership Greater Syracuse. I'm delighted to have our distinguished presenters today, County Executive McMahon and Syracuse Mayor Ben Walsh. Thank you for being here. Just a couple of things about our day today, or our hour. We are organized or scheduled to be just an hour today, and we are recording the session. So the way the format's going to work is we're going to have 10-minute presentations from each of our presenters, and then we will open it up, and Brian Hoke, our board member, will facilitate a question and answer period. We are record-breaking in two ways today. We have record-breaking in the number of people who have registered to attend this, and we are record-breaking in the number of questions that we've received. So there's we will get to as many as possible, but there's no way we're going to be able to hit all of them. But we thank you for all your questions and hope you find the Q&A session valuable. So now I'm very pleased to introduce our co-host, Executive Director of Leadership Greater Syracuse, Pam Brunei. Pam?
Thank you, Rita. It's been great to work with Rita to make this event possible. I'm excited about our event today. We are fortunate, not just today, but throughout their respective terms in office, that we have two elected officials who have been accessible to us, their constituents. The people in this audience today are informed, and they believe in our community, and they want to do their part to make it even better. We are doers on this video webinar. So we thank you, Mayor and County Executive, for being here with us today. It's tough to introduce people who need no introduction, so I will be brief. So please join me first today in welcoming the Mayor of the City of Syracuse, Ben Walsh. The Mayor has been a resident of this great city his entire life, and he was elected to serve as Mayor in 2017. He has many accolades to his credit, but on behalf of this audience, I want to thank you, Mayor Walsh, for your commitment to our city and for leading our residents through this once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. So Mayor, you have 10 minutes or until about 12:20 to please share your priorities for making Onondaga County a better place to live for all. Welcome, Mayor Walsh. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Rita. Really great to be here with the county executive, my partner in crime. We've been through quite a year together, and not just the two of us, all of us. I mean, it's been incredible, and I want to talk about going forward, but I think it's worth it to take a look back for a moment at what we've been through. Speaking specifically for the city of Syracuse, leading up to the pandemic, we were really firing on all cylinders as a community. All of our metrics were headed in the right direction. Our population was ticking up. Our private sector job growth was outpacing all of our peer communities. Our high school graduation rate was up. It's up even more now. Vacant properties were down. Crime continues to be down. But in city finances, after not too long ago, there being discussions about potential bankruptcy, we were on our way to a projected surplus. And then the pandemic hit and the bottom fell out. And it really threatened to not just delay, but really derail that progress. But as I sit here today, we are back on track. And it's for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is the partnership between not just city government and county government, but state government and federal government. I really do believe that our alignment in leadership in this community helped us through a very difficult year. And the county executive and I have talked about it quite a bit. And at the beginning of the pandemic, it was clear that that our response was going to have to be led by our county health department and the county executive. So I willingly just said to the county executive, listen, I'm here to block and tackle and support you however I can. And that's the way that we did it. And as the county executive reminded me recently that it turns out that I was lucky in more ways than one to have the county leading the charge on COVID, because the other significant societal influence last year had to do with the social unrest around policing and police reform. And thankfully, because the county was taking the lead on COVID, I had sufficient capacity to be able to really deal with that head on and not just respond to the challenges from the community, but really lean into them and accelerate the progress that we've made on policing and police reform. So, as we come out of the pandemic, I think that as a community we have fared as well as we possibly could have, understanding there was still a lot of loss of life, loss of income and of livelihoods. But we're coming out of it again in a position to pick up where we left off with our growth. So looking forward, just a few things, and I think we'll be talking more about them in the Q&A. I mentioned city finances, and thankfully, because of the American Recovery Act that was passed by Congress and signed by President Biden, the city of Syracuse is receiving $123 million of federal COVID relief. We are using that funding to, again, stabilize our finances after losing a significant amount of revenue. If you think about it, our two largest sources of revenue are sales tax and state aid, both that were significantly impacted by the pandemic. But that puts us in a position to shore up those revenue shortfalls, not just this year, but for the next 3 years, and really make strategic investments that can help us not just recover from the pandemic, but really accelerate the progress that we've been making. So looking forward, some areas where we're going to be making investments. And I mentioned shoring up city finances. We're putting $46 million into restoring lost revenue, but also making some strategic investments in city government in the areas of public safety and police accountability, as well as cybersecurity and other digital infrastructure investments that are critical for the city to be stable and to continue to deliver services. We are investing almost $35 million into children, families, and neighborhoods. A lot of that is going into housing. There's an article on Syracuse.com today about our Resurgent Neighborhoods initiative. We're building 50 new single-family, affordable, owner-occupied homes, 17 of which will be built this year. We are going to continue that work. We're also building new affordable rental units. We're investing in homeowners. We're going to be providing grants and other incentives for homeowners to make repairs on their homes, really, again, with the effort of stabilizing, with the intent of stabilizing our neighborhoods. We're also investing in young people. We know that our young people have been through a lot in this pandemic. So we're making investments in education, in summer youth employment, in community centers, in violence prevention programs, significant investment there. We're investing nearly $30 million into infrastructure and public spaces. We all, I think, have a renewed appreciation for our parks and public spaces. And so we are going to be investing in our parks, also in infrastructure, a significant, about a $10 million investment in water infrastructure. So a significant investment there. And then finally, in jobs and economic recovery. We're investing in job training to make sure that our community is prepared for jobs, both in the new economy as well as in the trades, with all the significant projects that are underway or about to be underway, and also investing in our neighborhood business corridors and our small businesses. So It is a transformational opportunity. We intend to make transformational investments. I didn't think I could be more excited to do this job than I already am. But again, as I look forward towards hopefully the next 4 years, I think that the future of the city is bright, and I can't wait to talk more about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for, I'm pretty sure we're going to dig into more of some of those things that you mentioned through the Q&A, because I've got to see some of the questions in advance. So thank you for sharing that. So now next up is our County Executive, Ryan McMahon. Ryan assumed office as County Executive in 2018, and he has served our great city and our great county, both as a common councilor and a county legislator, including chair of the legislature. So on behalf of this audience, County Executive, I do want to thank you for your commitment to the county and for leading residents through this once-in-a-lifetime pandemic as well. So County Executive, you have about 10 minutes to please share your priorities for making Onondaga County a better place to live for all. So welcome, County Executive.
Well, thanks, Pam, and thanks, Rita, for having me. And it's good to see the mayor. The mayor and I see a lot of each other, but it's better to see the mayor in person. These Zooms, even though this is probably our last Zoom, Pam, that we're going to do together, the mayor and I need to agree to that. But we've been through a lot, right, as a community. I think the mayor touched on a lot of it. We went through a 100-year pandemic. We've all developed a new resilience. We may be tired and we may be kind of fatigued in many ways, but whatever, when you reflect back on what we've all been through, the anxiety, the fear of getting sick, maybe being sick, losing a loved one, isolation, the impacts on your maybe your own careers or your children, or maybe being isolated from people you love in senior facilities. We really are stronger now after all this. And I think if we take the same lessons we learned during the pandemic and we apply them to moving forward and addressing challenges in our community, I think we really do have lots of opportunities. And I think we really have our best days in front of us. The mayor touched on where we were before COVID, and we were seeing significant progress. Throughout the county, throughout the region, specifically in the city of Syracuse, where a lot of his initiatives that he put forward were starting to happen. And so the mayor's done a great job. He's been a great partner in this pandemic. And certainly I look forward to working with him for a long time to come. What we've done, and think about it, so our budget, so 2020, our 2020 budget, COVID hits in March. Our budget was actually done in October of 2019. So sales tax is our largest revenue, right? And so that's about half our revenue. So we're mid-year, end of Q1, Q2 when this happens, and essentially our economy shuts down. And so we immediately in county government have to start making very difficult decisions. We essentially, our part-time employees, we started off having to not bring them back or maybe let it go of our part-time employees. We did a lot of austerity. All of my initiatives that I worked very hard to get through the legislature in 2020, I had to say goodbye to. And then as the year went on, as the indecision went on, as we started to see sales tax payments drop 40, 50, 60% from the previous year, and not knowing where this was going, we had to continue to make decisions. And the legislature they were great partners with me. They gave me the ability to manage the pandemic so that we didn't have to do things draconian. If they didn't give me the ability to manage the pandemic on a day-to-day basis, we would have had to have laid off hundreds and hundreds of employees because we just didn't know what was going to happen. And it was mid-year. We didn't have a time to budget for it. So in 2020, our revenue, we cut over $80 million mid-year. When you look at retirement, early retirements, cuts to our budget. And actually, we had a bad year. It was really bad, the worst ever, but it just wasn't as bad as $80 million. So we actually ended 2020 with a surplus of over $20 million because we cut so hard. In 2021, the same thing happened. The second wave of this pandemic, which was way worse than the first wave, but we knew more about the virus. We knew more about what we had to do and to maintain the medical infrastructure in the community. In October, November, we're going through that same budget process. And, we're dealing with 300, 400, 500 cases a day. And really, if you think about it, our economy was shut down at 30 cases a day in the first wave. So we had to worry about those types of things as we were budgeting. So in 2021, we budgeted $80 million less. And some of the worst case scenarios have not happened. So we're in a good fiscal position now. So fast forward to the mayor's point with the American Rescue Plan, we've received $89 million from the federal government. Most of it will be revenue replacement. And so because we made many difficult decisions, we're using this revenue as really recovery dollars. And really to address the areas that we ran for election on with our PI platform, really looking in to address barriers to employment so we can address poverty. And then looking at really modernizing our infrastructure because that will prepare us for economic development opportunities and a job for our people. So when you look at what we've done, we really broke things out. In addition to the $89 million, we've put $16 million worth of local dollars into this plan. We have some other federal assistance like rental relief. That's a part of this. We received about between $23 and $25 million of rental relief to go to tenants and landlords that have been impacted by COVID. So that's money that's now getting out the door, getting back into the economy, getting people caught up on rent and getting landlords able to get caught up on their mortgages and getting money back in their pockets, which is positive. But when you look at what we're doing, one of the major things that we've seen during the pandemic is the digital divide. And certainly it's about access, it's about affordability, it's about choice. We're earmarking $15 million to address the access issue first and foremost, meaning that many people in our community don't have high-speed wireless. They don't, especially in our rural communities. So we're going to actually put down the infrastructure, whether that's wireless, whether it's fiber, whatnot, that probably a little bit of all the above, but we're going to do that to address that issue. And then we'll look at the second piece of the digital divide, working with partners on how we can deal with that with literacy and other things. Certainly, we're going to invest money in neighborhoods. We have the Onondaga County Neighborhood Initiative where we have 1% loans based off of the mayor's father, Congressman Walsh's Syracuse Neighborhood Initiative. I was on the council when he was getting those dollars for our community. But we're going to go into targeted neighborhoods and have low interest loans to get money back into the community and into the housing stock. We put $2 million into the Catholic Charities Men's Shelter for a new men's shelter so that there's a more holistic approach to what was known as the Oxford Inn moving forward. The Alliance for Economic Inclusion, which is a poverty initiative for our community where the county kind of manages and then we put the money forward and eventually hopefully get paid back by the state. That was on pause. These are about 20 to 30 different poverty programs that we are now funding and getting that money flowing. So we're excited about that. From an infrastructure standpoint, our roads, we're putting forward the most robust road plan in the county's history. We're going to do $20 million worth of paving of roads, almost 200 miles of roads this year. That goes to local vendors, and those are local people getting back to work. But it's also getting us ahead of the curve in our road plan, which will really help the taxpayers of this county in future years. One-time purchases of equipment. In vehicles. These are things that, again, local vendors are getting a big shot in the arm there. When we look at downtown, we have a thriving downtown in the city of Syracuse, but also our villages. We have 15 villages that have downtowns on Main Street. And we've been investing a lot of money in planning grants for town centers and hamlets, but also Main Street investments and that before this. So now we just announced today, we'll do another $5 million investment in Main Street developments, hamlet developments in our towns and town centers so that we can continue to develop those small little downtowns because we know that will lead to strong neighborhoods. Downtown Syracuse, our Carnegie building, the Carnegie Library, the county owns that. We've filmed movies there recently, but that's an opportunity for the city and county to work together on various things, maybe even including some of our departments working together. So we're going to invest $4 million and renovate that, so it can be an asset for the neighborhood, but also a way to potentially save the taxpayers money by relocating different departments there. The Loop the Lake Trail. Onondaga County has been working on Onondaga Lake and the cleanup for generations now, 3 county executives. And we are at the point now where we're continuing to plan for what's next. We will be really planning for the final phase of our Loop the Lake Trail. So we'll certainly support that, and so that we have that resource. The Loop the Lake Trail, the West Shore Trail, that's new during the pandemic, it's been used more than ever. It's unbelievable, the access to that. So we'll continue to revitalize and invest around Onondaga Lake to make it the recreational epicenter of our community, and it's quickly becoming that. In addition to that, we're going to have targeted support for hospitality and tourism. We had plans for a multi-sports athletic complex for sports tourism, not for SU to go play at or a college to play at, but specifically think about teams and travel tournaments. This is something our hotels have been dying for and asking for. Our hotels have been decimated during this process. So we will be coming out shortly with a plan there. You have to have enough fields, and it has to be big enough to attract these tournaments, or it doesn't work. So we'll reintroduce this topic to the community with a plan. We have our sustainability and feasibility study done on this. Very feasible. We're in the middle of the state. Just like logistics works here for large employers, this project will as well. In addition to that, we'll invest in our convention center for improvements up to $5 million to help modernize and create more meeting space so that we can create more traveling business and tourism for our downtown. We have seen an emerging film industry here in Central New York, in our county. We will put $5 million in with CNY Arts for a film incentive based off of local spend and local workforce hiring. That will help, that $5 million will probably trigger anywhere between $60 and $80 million of investment from the film industry. And then we'll have a tourism fund that will work with Visit Syracuse. And in many cases, when we have large conventions, you have to compete. And sometimes you have to pay for them. And so we'll have a fund that we'll be able to do that, because we know investing in certain spaces there will get a multiple. But one of the biggest post-pandemic opportunities that we have in really our country, but we're uniquely positioned here in Onondaga County, is in the high-tech manufacturing space. We have a site, White Pine, that is one of the only sites in the country and in North America that has the electric, the gas, the water, the wastewater, and enough land to host a high-tech manufacturer, specifically in the semiconductor space. So we've been working very, very hard to get this site really the type of profile we need. We've done that. Senator Schumer has a bill that the president supports that passed the Senate. Now it's the House, but it creates $52 billion worth of semiconductor incentives to repatriate semiconductor manufacturing here. Everything we do is, a chip is involved with it. And this is really a national defense and security issue. And we have a site here in Onondaga County that's the best in New York by far, but also one of the best in the country. So we're working with multiple prospects right now. And these are some of the greatest technology companies in the world. And so we believe strongly we're well positioned to attract an investment that will be a game-changing investment for manufacturing, for research and development. It will help us in the mayor with what we're trying to do downtown with the tech corridor at the Syracuse Surge platform. So we're going to spend a lot, at least $20 million in site development, but also R&D opportunities in that space. But again, we have fiscally, there's things that we're doing now with stimulus money, but we're seeing different initiatives and different requests all the time. And fiscally, we're in a position where we'll probably be able to help people out moving in for the next 12 months. As we made a lot of tough decisions, so we're better positioned moving forward to be able to make more strategic investments moving forward as well.
Terrific. Thank you so much, County Executive. We appreciate your time and your vision. So now I would like to please ask Brian Hoke, the board member of Focus Greater Syracuse, to lead us please through the Q&A, and these questions came from those who registered. Thank you, Brian, for your help in this way.
Sure. Thanks, Pam. I'll add my thanks to the mayor and the county executive. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time and your remarks. Thank you to everybody, a large number of everybody participating here as attendees. And a special thanks to folks who sent in questions. As Pam mentioned, as Rita mentioned earlier, We had lots of questions, which are great. Cautiously optimistic that so many of those questions are not about the pandemic, which maybe a couple months ago would not have been true, but signs of hope, I think. And we've taken the liberty of organizing those questions into some categories. Certainly, the mayor and the county executive touched on some of these already, but we'll ask them anyways, just because it seems what folks who are here are interested in. So first up, a question about equity. A question about what are the priorities for improving the life of folks in our community, those vulnerable populations like refugees, like those living in poverty and others. What are the priorities for helping those folks?
You have a preference on who goes first, Brian?
No, up to you guys.
I guess I'll take it for a shot. So first, specifically to refugees, Syracuse has long been a proud refugee resettlement community. The influx of refugees, new Americans, immigrants into our city has helped to bolster our population. Going back over the past decade, if we were not a refugee resettlement community, we would have seen a much more significant population loss. They have started new businesses, repopulated business corridors. So it's a role that as mayor I embrace, I welcome, and frankly we haven't, over the past 4 years we have not brought in the number of refugees coming into the community has gone down significantly. So we're looking to bolster that back up, and optimistic that we'll be able to do that. I mentioned some of the investments that we're making in affordable housing. Housing stability is a critical component to helping people living in poverty and other vulnerable populations. At least 25% of city residents move. 25% of city residents move at least one time per year. And that's because of the percentage of people that rent in our community. So you think about how disruptive having to move that often is for anybody, let alone people living in poverty, how it impacts kids' ability to get to school, parents' abilities to get to work. So housing and neighborhood stabilization is a priority, and that's why we're investing so much in there. Equity in transportation. That's why we're starting a municipal sidewalk program, because again, about 25% of the people in the city of Syracuse don't own a private vehicle. They walk. So we need to make sure that we're taking care of our pedestrian infrastructure like we take care of our vehicular infrastructure, not to mention our bike infrastructure. We're about to reintroduce our new and improved bike share program later this summer. So that's critically important. Health, lead abatement. We know that we have an older housing stock. Lead poisoning is a significant barrier for people, for our vulnerable populations. We're working very closely with the county and making investments in there. Those are just a few examples. There are a lot more, but it's critically important, and I think we're making positive strides.
Great, thank you. County executive, you want to come in on that?
Yeah, I think, look at the city and the county work cohesively on so many of these issues, but when we look about our poverty platform, we really look at trying to have short and long-term solutions and approaches and strategies to public health, housing, workforce, education, early childhood investments, which we've actually won national awards for recently, and then transportation, which the mayor talked about. And the end goal is you need jobs, right? You talk about poverty. Poverty is a symptom of a lack of economic opportunity. So right now, jobs are not an issue in the community whatsoever. We have more jobs coming online than we've ever had before. And once we can get the workforce ready for that, I think we'll see that unemployment rate really start to skyrocket downward again. But again, what we're talking about, I think the mayor and his team have done a phenomenal job, and they're making investments in the digital divide as are we. And when you look at the Alliance for Economic Inclusion, again, these are 20 to 30 specific poverty initiatives that we are funding that address all the issues I just talked about. When you talk about refugees, I too support, we are a refugee community. I think the mayor and I have signed multiple letters, me being the CEO of the local county that does all of the human service support. I have to agree to it, or else some of these programs don't happen. And so we've been very supportive. We'll continue to be supportive. But I think related to poverty and equity, when you look at some of the workforce development programs that have been put in place by the city and or county, and you look at the intentional attention into this area by our two administrations, I challenge anyone throughout the last 2 decades to find more intentional investment and time to be put into this. And I think we were really going on the right path with the data. The pandemic stopped it all. So we got to re-engage, we got to double down, and we will.
Gotcha. Great. Thanks to you both. Unsurprisingly, excuse me. Unsurprisingly, we had quite a few questions on I-81. Where exactly do we stand with I-81? Specifically, are you working together to advise the New York State DOT on a holistic solution that will serve both the city and the county? I'll be presumptuous enough to say specifically, how are you working together to advise the state DOT on that? But any comments you care to share? Certainly seems an area of interest from the folks who sent in questions, please.
So I'd love to start with this one. The county executive and I have talked about 81 a lot, and I think we both agree that it is a once in a generation opportunity. We're talking about a $2 billion infrastructure investment, and we want to maximize that opportunity. I think that starts with getting local people to work on the project, and we have the Syracuse Build program, and recently launched a Pathways to Apprenticeship program that's helping train people for those jobs. But we also have an opportunity to undo some of the damage that highway did to our city. We know that it went right through the 15th Ward, which was a predominantly Black and brown community. There is a legacy from that investment that that has continued to marginalize communities in the city. And so, but it isn't just a city issue. We recognize that. And, for those, it's no secret, I'm a passionate supporter of the community grid option. It's not the perfect option, but it's the best transportation option as evidenced by the data. And it's the best option for people. But it doesn't mean that we can ignore the concerns that we're hearing from our suburban communities. I contend that for most of those concerns, whether it's traffic in our southern towns and villages or to the east, those are issues that exist today and will likely exist going forward, regardless of the 81 solution, unless we deal with them directly. So I think that there's an opportunity to mitigate the majority of those risks. In terms of a hybrid solution, I'm disappointed to see that there are folks that are promoting this skyway concept. That's an elevated viaduct. It was ruled out by the DEIS. So we're going to see a revised draft environmental impact statement come out from the state this summer. I encourage everyone to really spend time with it, do your research, do your homework. Again, there's no perfect option, but I think it's the right option. But regardless of the final details, one thing that I know is that the county executive and I are committed to working together to maximize the opportunity.
Thank you. County executive.
Yeah, Brian, I would agree. I think overall, so I'm in a little bit of a different role on this issue, right? So I represent the whole county, the towns, the villages, the city of Syracuse. So I've always viewed my role as being less of an advocate as county executive and more of a facilitator to solutions. And so when I was the chairman of the legislature, I could take a different role. I represented a district. I could say, how does this impact my district? Good or bad, or maybe neutral, right? But there's no perfect project. And the mayor touched on it. It's a unique opportunity to capture a tremendous investment, put many people in this community to work, and give them sustainable skill sets to compete in the private sector moving forward. In addition to that, the highway is old, right? And it's failing and it's dangerous. So something has to be done. And so right now, it's very clear the path that it's going on. It's very likely to be a community grid. And so what I look at that then is where in this community do we need to address related to mitigation? And the mayor's right. In the eastern suburbs, a lot of that state infrastructure today, and it's a problem today. So let's use this opportunity as a way to address the problem today and make it better. In the northern suburbs in Cicero and Clay, state infrastructure today, it's a problem today. Failing infrastructure as far as traffic counts go. So let's take this opportunity and get the money here to fix the problem moving forward. I think the president has put forth some interesting strategies related to some of this about community mitigation. Certainly there's some suburban communities that didn't exist before 81. Let's just be honest about that. And so there's been a lot of investment. Is there ways to help mitigate some measures and create new strategies for those communities? Those are the things I'm interested in, as well as working with the mayor to make sure that the city neighborhoods right next to the highway get treated fairly and make sure that those residents' voices are at the table. So my job as a facilitator and then an advocate for the areas of which I think the proposal could potentially have a negative impact. But I think the grid will be the project. There is a process of engagement moving forward. But for the first time in this debate's history, there's money behind it at the state level. And certainly having the Secretary of Transportation in the community shows there's a commitment at the federal level to get something done.
Great. Thanks to you both. I'm sorry, did I interrupt somebody? Okay. Moving on, we had some questions, quite a few questions about safety. Looking at quality of life, what can government do, city, county, to prevent gun violence in the city and the county? And specifically for the mayor, could you share some police enforcement strategies to mitigate problems such as other things, fireworks, speeding, use of off-road vehicles, and drug dealing? But I think in particular, certainly a lot of the questions centered on gun violence. If somebody would like to tackle those first, please.
Yeah, I'm happy to start off there. So we have a gun violence crisis in our community, and it's not limited to our community. When you look across the country, one of the I think impacts of the pandemic has been a spike in violent crime in communities across the country, and we've seen that here. We are dealing with it head on through a number of different strategies, and while also dealing with addressing many of the quality of life issues that we hear about regularly. Much of that is done through special details at the Syracuse Police Department. I want to give a credit to Chief Buckner. Every issue I've brought to him, from fireworks to gun violence to ATVs and dirt bikes, he has responded and dedicated resources to deal with them while we're still doing police reform. I think oftentimes people fall into this trap where you think you either have to blindly back the blue or defund the police. And the reality is we need law enforcement to protect us, but we need to make sure that that everyone is being held accountable, and we're doing that. So a few examples: we started over a year ago a gun violence suppression detail. So this is a proactive unit that goes out and gets guns off the street, and they've been very good at that. We have special details for fireworks and dirt bikes and ATVs. Fireworks calls, last year was insane, and again across the country. Again, I'm sure the pandemic had something to do with that. Fireworks calls are down 75% this year, but they're still happening. I can attest to that on a nightly basis. SPD's out there working with the New York State Troopers. We've confiscated a lot of illegal fireworks this year and last year. Same thing with dirt bikes and ATVs. Another partnership, we work with the sheriffs, the county sheriffs in Air One. We put a helicopter out there to help us track those vehicles. We've been able to significantly decrease how often those are happening. So again, we are responding. But getting back to violence, as I've said recently, there really needs to be two related approaches. One is in the short term, which is going out, getting guns off the street, getting bad guys off the street, holding people accountable that are perpetuating the violence. And then the long-term strategies, the things that the county executive and I have talked about. How can we address the underlying root causes that are creating this environment where crime happens, poverty, opportunity, education, all those things. So we're working on all of those fronts.
Great, thanks. County executive, you want to come in on this?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the mayor hit home where we kind of play a more active role, right? So I don't directly have a police force. I do have a park ranger force that's in our parks, but Not that's a part-time force. But for the sheriff's a good partner. When the chief needs the sheriff, he's there, and then we look at those details as well. But where we are effective is with our probation department, and our probation department is a very good deterrent to bad behavior, because if they violate you, you have a high probability of going back to jail. And so they are for example, we have probation details in the mall where we work with Destiny. We have them there. We work with the city on their strategies as needed. But I think more or less when we're looking at the violence, and specifically the youth violence, there's the police response is a reactive response. And they're going to do that. But to get ahead of this, it's going to take mid and long-term approaches. One of the things that the mayor and I have partnered on is our youth summer job program, where we continue to expand that. We will continue to expand it and put more money behind it, where you're giving these young people alternatives in that dignity of a paycheck. Poverty, again, that is a huge issue. From a generational poverty standpoint, we're working specifically with the families that have been really second, third generation on assistance. We know who they are. We have specific programs that we're targeting with them. And again, many of these families, their children are involved in some of these incidents. So these are things that it's going to take a little bit of work, but make no mistake, the pandemic and the isolation of the last 16 months has had an impact. So my hope is that some of these spikes is a temporary moment in time. We'll get through it, and some of our other efforts will have time to marinate.
Gotcha. Thank you. We had quite a few questions on infrastructure and technology. County Executive, I'll throw one to you. In particular, a participant asked, how are the opinions of residents, specifically in Clay, being taken into consideration as big box stores and big industrial complexes who are getting tax breaks come to our community?
Yeah, well, we don't give big box stores tax breaks. So, but for example, in any right now at the White Pine opportunity, we own property, right? So the county's the owner. As an owner, you have the ability to do certain things with your property. And then if you want to do other things, you need to ask permission from home rule. So certainly what we do, it's easy for people right now when we're talking about a semiconductor facility and a research and development and the breadth and of the opportunity, right? You're talking about a $10 to $20 billion investment, 3,000 to 5,000 construction jobs and 3,000 to 5,000 permanent jobs with the average salary of $150,000 a year. But for neighbors, there's a lot of unknowns, right? What does that mean for my traffic? What does that mean? The reality is at this state, I can't answer that without basically what's been studied through the environmental review process, where this type of investment will not make the traffic worse in that community through the first phase, because that's been studied. But some of the other questions that are important to neighbors are related to what the actual site plan looks like and how are some of the other specifics for how that type of company would work. And so we
too far off at this point.
Was that?
And that's just too far off at this point to be able to.
It is. We don't have an end user yet. We're talking to 4 or 5 of the greatest technology companies in the world. But once we have an end user and you have a site plan, then you can answer some of that. But certainly, we represent 467,000 people. And the part of our strategy for our region is to be in this type of business. Clay, New York and White Pine site is the only place in New York State that can do what we're talking about, period. So it's tough. The county owns the land. So I do know that there are some residents that have concerns. In the process, we'll try to address those. But our administration is committed to landing this type of opportunity in our community, because it will change everything for the positive.
That's great. We had quite a few more questions. We had quite a few come in, and apologies we didn't get to those or the ones sent in before, but we certainly wanted to leave time, given the population, the sort of nature of our 2 organizations that are sponsoring this, to ask one last question that I would put to both of you. And the folks in our audience here, folks in our organizations, are made up of people who believe in our community and want to do their part to make it even better. I guess the core question is, what do you need from us to help you meet your vision? What can ordinary citizens do to contribute to what is an engaging, exciting sense of leadership I get? And I'm sure I'm not speaking alone in that. But what can we as just citizens, residents of the county or city do to help push the ball forward?
For me, I would just suggest that you continue to be engaged. Be pragmatic, but be a cheerleader. One of the things that we're not very good at is recognizing all of our assets in this community. And when I had an individual who's retiring, who wasn't from here originally, but made his career here. And he said it's one of the only places really in the country where when it snows, you have things to do. In the fall, you have things to do. In the summer, you have things to do. In other parts of the country don't, but everybody doesn't get it here. So be proud you're a Central New Yorker. Be active, be engaged, ask great questions, and volunteer. Some of our human service challenges moving forward, at least in the temporary basis, are going to be tough after 16 months of isolation. So we'll need everybody's help.
Great, thanks. Mayor
Walsh? I'll piggyback on that. And I saw something come in through the chat. One way in which you can be further engaged is to vote, and we know that that not everyone is doing that. We had primaries recently, and the turnout was very low. It's a way in which all of us who are able should engage in the community. But again, the folks that are on this call already get it. You all are engaged. Please continue to be engaged. I think the county executive's point about volunteering is a great one. There are lots of different ways in which you can help. Be informed. Do your homework. Consume news through the various platforms. Don't just get it all spoon-fed to you through Facebook. There's a lot of good data and information out there that can help inform your opinions, whether it's about some of the controversial issues that we've discussed or just everyday things. But and also maybe it's because I'm in an election year, maybe it's because I'm an independent, but don't fall into the trap of having to place yourself on one opposite end of a spectrum on any given issue, whether it's political or otherwise. Life is complicated. It's nuanced. Take the time to learn, to listen, to put yourself in other people's shoes, to develop empathy, and to engage in dialogue. These are all things that are at a premium these days. But again, most of the things that we're dealing with, if they were simple, we would have figured them out by now. They're not. So don't try to treat them like they are. Take the time to engage again, as you're doing right now, so you can be fully informed and help us continue to move this community forward. Again, I couldn't be more excited. I truly believe our best days are ahead of us, and it's largely because of many of you who are on this call. So thanks for all that you do, and thanks for the opportunity.
Great. Well, thanks to you both for your leadership, your vision, your service, your enthusiasm. I will turn it back over to Rita and Pam.
Thank you, Brian. That was not an easy job. We had far more questions than we had time, and I appreciate both the mayor and the county executive for being there with us today. I want to thank you for being available to constituents here, and everyone in the audience. Please spread the word about Leadership Greater Syracuse and Focus Greater Syracuse, because both our county executive and the mayor talked about being informed, and we offer opportunities for people to be informed. So with that, thank you both. And I turn the webinar back over to Rita.
Thank you all. I am thrilled with what we were able to hear today. I think just to know the quantity of questions that we couldn't even address them all, but it just shows you how interested people are in this community and how in tuned they are to many of the issues that are in this community and want to help. So I hope you appreciate all of that. And we did share all of the questions with the county executive and mayor. So they have a sense of the full set of questions that came in. So again, thank you so much, County Executive Ryan McMahon and Mayor Ben Walsh. We appreciate all your time and spending your lunch hour with us, if you even get in lunch hour. I'm not sure that so everybody knows we'll be posting this on both of our websites, both Leadership Greater Syracuse and Focus websites, as soon as we get it processed. So that will happen shortly. And, both LGS and Focus make opportunities like this available, and we could use the financial support. So for our audience, if you're on our website, or go to our audience, go to our websites, and any contribution would be most appreciated by both organizations. We are very frugal organizations, and we would appreciate any support. Thanks to all, and have a great day.
Thank you.